pulling up my chat right here. Yeah, good morning or good afternoon, wherever you are. Great to be here with you, our wonderful Igniting Hope family. We actually were doing a transformational mind renewal course or Zoom last night, and I got to meet some new people. So if you're on here now or be listening later, I just want to say welcome to the family. We are thrilled that you are part of Igniting Hope. And we're even more thrilled that you're taking this message of hope and you're impacting your world. You're bringing it to your sphere of influence. And we are believing for world domination of hope, bringing the truth of who Jesus says you are and what he paid for. And you're taking that same message and you're spreading it around. You have become an ambassador of hope. It's too late. If you thought you were just you, it's too late. You've stepped into something so much bigger than yourself. And you're an answer. You are literally an answer to the aches and the pains and the troubles in so many other people's hearts and lives and your family. And you'll wake up one day and you just begin to realize that you are profoundly powerful and you're a powerful tool in the hand of the Lord and what he is doing on this planet. And so I just want to say welcome and thank you so much for saying yes to us. So today I'm going to talk about this. To grow, you must let go. And it's letting go of all the things that are holding you up in your life from becoming the person that you are longing to be. And I'll talk a little bit more about that in just a second, but I want to just give a couple announcements if you haven't already heard. And I'm sure some of you have already heard, but we are launching, I think on September 11th, the mentorship. So Steve is doing a mentorship and Wendy is also doing a mentorship, and I get to come along and join them on both of their wonderful journeys. But, so many times for us to move forward in our life, to follow somebody who's already been there, who's already taken the bruises and the punches and learned to grow. Man, we can grow so much by following somebody who's already done it, following their footsteps, hearing and receiving their wisdom, receiving their impartation. There's something so profound about following somebody else. And really, that's what we do all the time. We follow Jesus. He gives us strength. He teaches us, he grows us, and we're stepping into a victory that we didn't fight for. And that is the Christian life right there. We are stepping into a victory that we didn't fight for, we didn't earn, and we don't deserve. And yet here we are crowned as the kings and queens and sons of God, daughters of God, made in the image of God. And none of us fought for it. None of us, earned it. And yet we stepped into the victory of Jesus. There's something so beautiful and so godly about having somebody else mentor us, where we actually get to step into I love the fact that Steve and Wendy share, their bumps and bruises for several decades, and we actually get to partake of the victory off of their life. And there's so many mistakes I will never have to make, so many pains I'll never actually have to experience because I'm following somebody and receiving from them. So Jan has put that in the chat. If you guys are interested, take a look, and it will be just exciting to see you on here. Harold, good morning. Great to have you on here. Okay, so I want to talk a little bit about to grow, you must let go. And I want to talk just for just a quick moment that growth does not happen accidentally. Good morning, Paul. Growth never happens accidentally unless I started saying unless you're a plant, but even if you're a plant, you have to have soil, you have to have water, you have to have sunlight. You remove any one of those things and you're not growing. It just isn't going to happen for you. But I thought this was really interesting. I heard somebody say, how do you know that something's alive? Oh, it's growing. If something is alive, it is growing. And I thought about the difference between a plant in your house. Like I have this beautiful zebra plant right here. Or somebody brings you cut flowers. They bring you a bouquet of cut flowers. Those cut flowers may actually be so vibrant and so beautiful, so lovely, and they fill your house. Just with just amazing fragrance. I absolutely love lilies. Those are my favorite flowers. And when I walk into a place, proximity is important, but I'm telling you, probably within 100 feet, I can tell if there's lilies in a room. They are my favorite. And yet they're dead. That is such a shocking thing for you, is that once you cut the flowers, you have cut off their life supply. And it doesn't matter what they look like. It doesn't matter how beautiful they are or the fragrance they're giving off. They are dead and they are not going to grow. But then you take something like this, a plant that's fully immersed in, not only connected to its own roots, but it's in its soil. I'm on a plant thing, whatever. But it's super interesting to me. How do I know that this plant is still alive? It is growing. it is actually growing and it has the resources that it needs to grow. Well, how do you know if your marriage is growing? How do you know if your health is growing? How do you know if your relationships with your family are growing? How do you know if your dreams and your vision for your life is growing? How do you know if your business and your ministry is growing? Well, sorry, change all that to how do you know if it's alive? Well, it's growing. How do you know? I'm going to say now I'm going to go back and repeat it all. How do you know if your marriage is alive? It's doing well, it's growing. Well, how do you know that it's growing? Does it have the resources that it needs to grow? How do you know that the relationship that you have with your children is alive? Well, it's growing. You're growing. How do you know if your business is alive, if your vision for your future is alive? Well, it's growing. And that is such a wonderful key. Is so many times people will maybe deal with some level of success. Like, man, I just wanted to get married. I just wanted to get married. I wanted to have a family. And there's all this intentionality. And all of a sudden the wedding day comes and, 10, 15 years of marriage comes and the intentionality is gone. The growth is gone. I mean, it's so crazy to think people who madly loved each other were willing to give up everything for one another, to commit their lives to one another. And suddenly they decide, I want a divorce. I don't want to be with you anymore. Like, how does a couple get to that place where I am so done with you? Not only do I not want to be with you, I don't ever want to see you again. Like, I want nothing from you. I don't even want to smell you. I don't want to think about you. How does a couple get to that place? It's interesting. It's because it died. It's because it died. And why did it die? Because it stopped growing. And then that to me is it's like a big bright spotlight is, oh, well, I can actually resurrect. First of all, there's the grace of God. And so maybe some of you are dealing with relational issues right now, maybe issues in your own marriage. Maybe it's like, it's been 10 years, Connie. I don't know. I can't stand her. She just drives me nuts. But she wasn't always that way. There's something about her that you love. There's something about him that you loved. And there was, listen to this word, an intentionality where you pursued one another, where you pursued her, where you pursued him, where you learned things about him. And what was happening is you were growing in your knowledge of them. You were growing in your connection of them. And that growth causes, the crazy thing is I started propagating plants and I've got these little bitty plant things. I don't have any of them out here to show you, but I've got these little bitty clippings. I mean, they're weak and they're tiny. I have to support them. But the funny thing is once they take root on their own, they begin to grow and they get robust and their roots get strong. And all of a sudden, what was weak and small suddenly begins to take on this life force of its own because I allowed it to grow. I gave it the things that it needed and I allowed it to grow. And I'm saying this, that it doesn't matter what it is in your life. If there's an area in your marriage, maybe it's in your body, maybe with your children or your finances or your just the ministry, your business, whatever it is, maybe it's been weak. Maybe it's been cut off for a while from the life source, but you give that thing a place to grow. Give it what it needs to grow. And suddenly that relationship once again will take off in this strong, robust thing in your life. And so anyways, that's all free. So to grow, you actually have to let go of things. But growth, I'm going to go back to this, growth does not happen accidentally. We don't accidentally grow. We may accidentally get bigger, but nothing in our life is going to grow and take on significance by accident. You actually have to be intentional about growing. And so I'm just going to ask you a few things. Is there something in your life that matters to you that you want to step into? Is there something that you're wanting to improve in your life? And I'm just going to be overly vulnerable. I feel like this isn't a confessional for me anyways. It's like, some people step into the little confession box and they open the thing and suddenly like that's a cue for them to start confessing their sins. For me, I open my computer and I turn on live and that's my place to confess my sins. But there's things in my life that I have known that the Lord has asked of me, and I have known that as a desire in my own life, and I'm talking like 3 decades. Maybe not 3 decades, maybe like 25 years. Anyways, whatever it is. And so I'm not going to be vulnerable about all of them. Okay. I can only do so much, but one of them is writing. I have known since I was a child that I wanted to write. But when I got saved, and I mean, when I got radically saved, within like that first week, I knew I wanted to help people. And I knew that I wanted to write. There was something that came up out of the inside of me that I knew that if I would write, there'd be something about what I would write that would make an impact in people's life. Okay, this is now we're looking at probably close to 30 years later. It's so weird. That book has not written itself. And although I wouldn't have used these words, I wouldn't have said, I believe that my book will write itself. I believe it'll just happen. I believe the growth is just going to. Now, although I would never have used those actual words, but yet my whole life has been kind of waiting for that big thing to happen, or waiting for those big moments of inspiration, or waiting for to be discovered, to be given permission, to have somebody make you, whatever it is, rather than to come to the place going, if this is valuable to me, if this is something that I feel like the Lord wants me to do, or that I just want to do, I'm going to actually have to do it. I know some of you are so much smarter than me, but for whatever reason, like that has kind of escaped me. And so here's something that's super interesting is that we all have things that we want to move forward in. Every one of us has things that are so valuable to us. And there's a person that we want to be. There is a person that we know that we can be and should be, and yet there's traps in our way. And so I want to talk about, maybe there's a few of them, but I want to talk about maybe 3 traps right now. And number 1 is it doesn't happen accidentally. To grow, you are actually going to have, if you want the things to get better in your life, you're going to have to grow. Oh, it's so funny. Every time I try to say this, I mess it up. But I think I heard it right last night. But the rising tide floats all boats. And so the idea is, here's all these boats, but when the tide begins to rise, all of the boats begin to float. When you get better, when you grow in your life, every area of your life begins to improve. See, so I heard somebody say that people want the circumstances in their life to change. And man, raise your hand, raise both feet if that's you. We all have circumstances in our life that we want those things to change. But then he said, but few people actually want to be the change. I want my circumstances to change, but I don't actually want to be the change. And it's like, oh, that's kind of painful when I realize I want my marriage to change, but the truth is I want him to fix his problems rather than I actually want to change. And I was actually, while I was meditating on some of this morning, I just had, you have dialogues in your head with yourself, but it was like, well, hey, this is who I am. I am who I am, take it or leave it. And I just thought, man, that is something that we actually have to let go of that. This is who I am. I am who I am. And we need to let go of that because that's unfortunately not enough. You being you isn't enough. We actually need the better version of you. All of us actually need the better version of you. I want you to think about that. There's a better version of you that is going to bless the socks off your family. Your kids need the better version of you. That doesn't mean that you're not worthy where you are. Absolutely worthy. But what I'm saying is God never expects us to stop growing. We are actually intended to keep growing and getting better and getting stronger and getting more like him. The Bible says that we're actually growing up into him, into a perfect man. The Bible says that we are getting more and more and more in his image, created in the image of God, born a son and daughter, but our actual demonstration of the Christ in us, it is an ongoing process. That means we are to continue to keep growing and to keep developing. So this idea, well, this is who I am, take it or leave it. That's not going to cut it. This is who you are. Yes, I take you, but heck no, I'm not going to leave you there. That's the way the Lord is with us, is we actually need a better version of ourselves. And there's this thing in every single one of us, and that is this need for significance. And why is that there? Oh, because you're prideful and you want people to think you're great? No, because you're created to be an impact on this earth. Number 1, you're created in the image of God. Number 2, he flat is in love with you and you're so worth it for him to invest his all in you. But then number 3, we actually become the dinner bell for the rest of the world. My life is actually to produce hunger and the people who don't know him to know him. My life is to actually, for people who do know him, to realize, oh, there's more. There's more about what God wants to do in and through you. And so here are the things that I want just to just kind of talk about for a minute, as you sit there and listen to me. There are some things that I want to talk about that we actually have to make a decision. Let me just give you this example. I was in a meeting with Steve yesterday, and he was talking about David and how David had to encourage himself. You guys know the story. They come back from the battle and they find that their women and their children and their stuff is gone. Everything's gone and destroyed. And here's David with his men who were willing to, here's the crazy thing, they were willing to go with him, put their life on the line. They believed so much in who he was, they're willing to give it all up to go after him. So they were willing to risk their life for him. But when they came back and their wives were gone and their babies were gone and their stuff is ruined, suddenly they wanted to kill him. They wanted to kill him. And David does this amazing thing. And I want you to hear this. David's looking around at his circumstances and he's like, oh, shoot, this is not going to turn out well for me. I'm called to be a leader. I'm called to be their king. And suddenly David's on this like precipice of him being completely destroyed and removed from the planet. No, he's not going to fulfill his calling. Nobody's going to put a crown on his head. All the dreams and the goals and the purpose that David had in his life were about to be snuffed out by one act that wasn't even his own. And he comes back and they're all gone. David does something that is going to be celebrated of him forever and that we can walk into his victory. And that is, he began to encourage himself. He began to inspire himself. You know, what do you do when you find yourself at a place in life where nobody's encouraging you? No one's like, oh my gosh, Laura, you're awesome. Beth, you're amazing. Gretchen, the world needs what you have. It's like all of a sudden, nobody's talking about how awesome you are and the wonderful thing you do. And all of a sudden, instead, you might find that it's just the opposite. You're being bombarded with how you're not doing a great job. You're not being significant, whatever it is. And whether it comes from actual people, comes from the lying voice inside your head, or an attack of the enemy against us, we all can find ourselves in this place. Nobody's encouraging you and nobody thinks you're awesome. What do you do when you find yourself in that place? We do what David did. We begin to encourage ourselves in the Lord. The most important voice that you are ever going to hear in your life on this planet is your own. I mean, I need you to hear that. The most important voice that you're going to hear and the one that you're going to listen to is going to be your own. Because as for the Lord, how many people has he, how many people on the planet are there? All of those people were created in his image. All of those people were created with a promise and with a future and with a hope. And every person who's ever breathed and ever will breathe have a God in heaven who's for them, has plans for them, knows how to champion them, has the Holy Spirit and the grace of God targeted for them. And yet, how many of those people squander it all and do nothing with their life and run from him? So this says something. This says something super powerful is it's not just what God thinks about us that matters. It is what we think about ourselves that matters. It is my voice coming into agreement with his voice. So there's some things that I actually must let go of to grow in my life. So important. And what happened the minute when David began to choose himself, and I want to say this, he began to choose himself. God had already said, David is my anointed. I love the fact, and I talked about this last week, when God talked to Samuel, he said, I've chosen myself a king. You go and anoint him. That means God looked at David. God says, this is my son. I'm choosing him. Now, all of a sudden, what did David need to do? David needed to choose himself. He actually needed to choose himself. He needed to decide, I actually am worth the investment of heaven. And man, I'm telling all of you and myself and Jan over here, we all have to make that decision. And I'm going to choose myself the way the Father has chosen me. I'm going to choose myself the way Jesus himself has chosen me. Because in order for me to move forward and to become that person that I am longing to be in my life, and that heaven is longing for me to be in my life, and that all the people that I'm called to influence, they all actually need me to come into agreement and say, I choose me. I choose that you're right about me, and I'm going to champion who I am. Man, we've got to get a hold of this, because it doesn't matter who thinks you're amazing. It doesn't matter who prophesies over you if you don't choose to believe the truth about who you are. So to grow, you have got to let go of other people's opinions, and you have to let go of false lies about who you are. Impossible to move forward until we actually make a decision. I'm worth the investment in myself. I am worth my vote. You remember when I said, well, for those of you who heard it last week, David actually had to vote for himself. You have to vote for yourself. And your growth is going to require to let go of some things. And so one is that it happens automatically. It doesn't happen automatically. We actually are going to have to make some decisions to say, what is it that I want to do? Who is it that I want to become? And what do I need to do to move forward? And so there's also trips. And I call these like potholes. I've got a destination that I want to get to. So I'm going to just go back to mine with my writing. There's this destination that I need to get to. And it's to write and to publish and to distribute my book. So, and it's because I want that book, for whatever reason. I'll get sidetracked. So, but here's my goal. What are the potholes that I might hit on the way? Or peradventure, what have I been hitting all along the way? What is it that keeps tripping me up? And that's a good question to ask yourself. Number one, what is it that I actually want to improve in my life? And what is it that keeps hitting me? What is it that keeps stopping me? And that would be something great if you take notes or go back later and write that out and say, man, what is it that I want to improve in my life? What is this person that I'm wanting to become? And maybe it's way too big of a question. Like, who do I want to become and what all do I want to do? Maybe that's too big of a question. How about one thing? What's one area in my life that I want to grow in? I want to improve this. I want to move forward in this. Ask yourself that one question and then ask yourself, what do I keep hitting into? What keeps tripping me up? And so I want to talk, let me pull out my notes really quick. One of the things that I have found, and I did this actually, I was on a plane the other day and I started writing these notes out for myself. And it's like, Connie, what is it? You want to move forward in this area. What is it? And some of you, it's like, I just keep waiting for the door open for me. I keep waiting for permission to be given. I keep waiting for, to be discovered, whatever it is, like someone is just going to come find you and find out like you're a marketing genius. Can I pay to increase your marketing abilities? And instead it's like, actually you vote for you, the gifts that are in you. And here's something I find that's super interesting is, and remind me if I forget to get back to this, but there's 3 things the Lord spoke to me the other day. And I actually had to go and find out what he was talking about. But everyone is, everyone has, and everyone can. And it just kind of kept going off. And so a couple days later, I have to sit down. Okay, everyone is what? And here's what he said. Everyone is created in the image of God. Everyone is created in the image of God. Everyone is given a purpose in this life that is so far above anything you can imagine. Everyone is clothed in the glory of God who says yes to him. Everyone, and here's something else that he said. Let me pull up my notes for that. But something that he started speaking to me about, it'll probably take me too long to find my notes on this. One of the things he started speaking to me about is God did not make any insignificant member. Actually, let me back that up. He did not create any insignificant person on the planet. There isn't a single person that God's like, I need some filler people that don't matter. So you can be born over here. You'll be born in Redding. You'll be born in, Kansas. Like these are the insignificant ones. There's no such thing as an insignificant person that is on the planet. Every single person is created in the image of God. Every single person is created in the love and affection of the Father who has tremendous plans for them. Then he said, everyone has. Everyone has the grace of God gifted to them. Everyone has gifts and callings that are unique. There are some gifts and callings on your life. They are unique to you and only you. Everyone has those things. And then everyone has access to the Spirit of grace, the supernatural grace of God, the unfair ability of God himself. I mean, what is it like to have God that created everything to be in you and want to use the gifts and the strengths on your life? Everyone has that. And finally, and this is most importantly, everyone can choose. Everyone can. So everyone is, everyone has, and everyone can. And what's the can? Everyone can choose to come in line with what God says about them. Everyone can come into agreement that you've been worth the investment of heaven, that you're worth the life of Jesus, and begin to pursue what that looks like. I mean, think about that. What would your life be like if you just accepted the truth about who you are? If you just accepted that you're worth the price of Jesus? What would our life like? All of a sudden, I'm sorry, I can't deal with fear. I can't deal with insignificance. I can't deal with fear of failure. I can't deal with shame. I can't deal with, harboring, guilt and condemnation over my past mistakes. I can't do that. Why? Because, oh my gosh, I am created in the image of God. And he's thinking about me. He has plans for me. He's gifted me. Okay, so going back then to what I just said. So that one's a free one. So everyone is created in the image of God. Everyone has. oh my gosh, everyone has gifts and callings. Everyone has access to the Spirit of grace, and yet everyone can, and this is so important, everyone can choose to say yes to the person that heaven wants you to be, the person heaven's celebrating you to be. Okay, so here's what I was sitting there on the airplane, and I was asking myself, what are these potholes that I keep hitting into? And it's funny when you get real, it's just interesting when you get real truthful with yourself. Your answers are inside you. Most of us, we don't need someone else to tell us. We know, but we actually have to stop and take the time and actually go after these questions. So what is it that I want to do? What do I want to do? What do I want to improve in my life? And why? And what is it that keeps causing me to stop? So anyways, so here's what I said, and I'll just read this to you. I would have never actually said it like this, but I actually have lived in this weird sort of delusion that doors would open, favor would fall, my book would just get done, I'd know what to write about, I'd be successful. But I've never actually focused on just growing me. And maybe that's not true in every area of my life, but just growing me and choosing to believe that I can do this. But here's something else. How many of us have just lived disappointed in all the goals we haven't reached? Or all the things, how many of us have spent an enormous amount of time thinking and feeling regret of all the things that I'm not doing and maybe the person that I'm not becoming? Man, that was like, that came out of me. I'm thinking, is that actually true about me? Because I am a very positive person. Overall, I'm a very joy-filled person. I most definitely believe in the Lord, believe in what he has said about me, but just believe in itself is never enough. Paul says, okay, you'll show me your faith without your works. I'm going to show you my faith by my works. It is what I make action to that actually displays what I believe. And that is something that's so profound in our life. You want to know what you're actually believing, pay attention to what you're doing. Pay attention to what you're saying. If you believe you're worth it, you're going to make investments in who you are. You're going to take the time to love yourself, to grow yourself. And it's so easy for us to believe that since I believe something, that that's going to be enough. But it's never going to be enough. We actually need to stop and evaluate. Lord, what is it? Or ask yourself, Gretchen, what is it? Connie, what is it that I am not doing? Or how is it that I'm living incongruently? Somebody said this. I'm so bad at it, so forgive me. Somebody said, I should write them down. I read these quotes and they go, oh my gosh, that's so good. But anyways, someone did say that failure, or I said so many times, here's what happens is we have no idea what we want in life, but we'll kill ourselves to get it. I thought that's so funny, and live in this constant frustration because when we don't know what we want and we don't know what we're intentionally growing towards, we'll actually never lived a satisfied life of just abundance in the things that we want to achieve or do or be. Okay. So anyways, here's 3 things that I want to give you an assignment for. Number 1 is ask yourself the questions. What is it that I want to grow in? What is it that I want to do or improve in? And ask yourself what's tripping you up. And when you ask yourself those questions, make note of it. And so here's something that I did. I just went on this discovery of what it is that's tripping me up. And so let me just say a couple of things. And one is assuming that it's just going to happen, or that time, just the passing of time in it of itself is going to happen. But it doesn't happen that way. Just because you've lived long doesn't mean you're any wiser. Just because we stick around for a really long time doesn't mean you're any more valuable to the people in your life. And you ever know anybody that way? It's like they've been in your life for 20 years and they're not adding any value, but instead they're detrimental to your health. Okay, that is time doesn't make things get better. It's actually intentional growing. And that became very, very relevant to me, is very intentional growing on the things that I want to grow in. Okay. And then reflecting on what it is that is tripping me up. And so I want to say this. I've got too many notes, so I'm going to skip these and maybe I'll do some more on it next week. But here's something that is super, and in fact, I wrote this down. Holy cow, this is a real pain point for me, which was timing. Because I've been talking about writing a book pretty much all of my life, okay? There's always a reason why it's not a good time. But I think, and this is what shocked me, that came out of myself. I think the real truth wasn't even so much the passing of time by itself, but I think the real truth is feeling that I'm inadequate, that I'm not worthy. How did I word it? I put, I'm inadequate to write and I'm unworthy to be read. And Man, that was a real massive truth moment for me. And I really feel like that is a truth moment for all of us on here in some area of our life. There's always, we are not going to pursue what we don't believe we're worth. We are not going to knock the walls down and kick the doors open if I don't believe that I should be in that room. I'm just going to keep on going. I'm not going to bother with the door. And when I said that, it was funny because I was just taking notes. And when I said the truth is, I think the real truth is I feel inadequate to write and unworthy to be read. And that just began to unravel, and I probably wrote for 2 hours and just all these other things because it's not congruent with what I believe about who the Father is, about the grace of God in my life. But until I'm actually willing to get quiet and say, what is it, Connie, that you want to grow? What is it that you actually want to move forward in? And why are you not getting there? What keeps tripping you up? And when it's funny, when you begin to get real with yourself, you'll find out there's all kinds of things that have been hiding. That's one of the reasons why we do beliefs training, is a lot of times we just don't know that we're believing something that's not true about us. I believe God's good. I have this fantastic doctrine that God is so good and so kind and so fair and so wonderful, all these things, and yet having no expectation for his goodness in my life in this area. And that means that I'm believing a lie in that area. And so anyway, some of you know what our beliefs training is, but here's a plug for our beliefs training. And that is, a belief trainer comes and helps you discover areas in your life where hope has been robbed. Well, how do I know that hope has been robbed? I have no expectation for growth. I have no expectation for growth, no expectation for good. In fact, when I think about it, it brings pain and shame and discomfort. Well, that is a fantastic, I mean, it's so good. It's like, it's just the, as Steve says, it's like the check engine light on your car going, oh, this needs to be paid attention to. If you're dealing with shame and discomfort, and maybe discomfort's not the word, because we should be a little bit discomfort as we're growing, stepping out of our comfort zone, but shame, that's a good indication that somebody's lying to you and you've been believing it. Condemnation, a great indicator that, man, there is a lie hanging out over that area. And what do we need? More shame? No, that has never helped. Shame has never brought somebody into, great, wonderful revelation of the goodness of God. Instead, what we need is the truth. We need the truth. We want to move forward. We need the truth. I love the fact that Wendy says that you can't consistently do what you don't believe you are. That is so vital. And sometimes, and her and Steve both, they throw out these one-liners that, like, if I could live my life just going after that one-liner. But I remember the Lord speaking to me about, it's like, I'm going to believe that I'm a writer. I'm going to believe that I'm an author. I'm going to believe that I am an influencer, whatever it is. But he added something to me, and he said, and I was actually saying that in my mind, is that I can't, you won't consistently do what you don't believe you are. And the Lord said, and you won't consistently believe what you don't believe I believe. And that is key in our life. We must know what he believes to fix what I believe, so that I actually can tell myself a different story about who I am and what God wants to do in my life. Okay, so I'm just going to remind you a couple things. Sorry, I went all over the place today. It's like I have 18 pages of notes and just a couple things to cover. But I want you to ask yourself, who, I think in my subtitle I said, I don't remember what it was, but it was, I forgot, I did it like right before I started. But to grow, you are called to grow. You're called to move forward. We need you to grow. The planet needs you to grow. There's no insignificance in you at all. You are called in the image of God, in the likeness of God, with the grace of God, with the gifts and the strength of God. And of course, another one later down the road, there's things that we have to, what do I need to know? What do I need to intentionally grow after? What do I need to add to myself? So I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about choosing you, casting the vote for you, that you are valuable and significant and called to be significant. And so you're going to have to grow. You want a better marriage? You're going to have to grow. You grow, everything gets better in your life. You want you want breakthrough in your finances. You're going to have to grow. It's not enough to keep asking and praying God for a one-time, miracle in your finances. You're going to need to grow. There's things you're going to need to know that you don't know. There's things that you're going to need to do that you're not doing right now. But most importantly, there's things that you're going to need to believe that you are not currently believing, and you are worth the investment. And so here's the homework assignment again. And I just hope that you guys will consider doing this, because it's fantastic. And moving forward, you have to ask yourself, what do I actually want to grow? What do I want to grow in? What area of my life do I want to see improvement? And then ask yourself, what is tripping me up? Why am I not moving forward? And give yourself and give the Holy Spirit place to begin to speak to you. And then finally, once you have it, and I called that, I was like, okay, here's my discovery. I just went on this discovery with myself. Then what's my strategy? Ask the questions, go through the discovery, and then get yourself a strategy. And I want to say this, that strategy does not have to be like, for me, with my personality and some of you and things, all of us, sometimes it's our personality that trips us up, but that's perfection. Okay, well, if I'm going to do this, I want it done by Friday and I want it perfect. Instead, what small thing can you do? I heard somebody talking about, it's the law of the 1%, and I don't remember what his name is, but he's like, you want to grow and you want to develop in something, the law is 1%. What can you do that's just 1% better? And if you're taking off from an airplane from California and you're heading all the way across the United States to New York, and if that plane gets 1% off, you will not land anywhere near New York. I think that's crazy. You want 1%. It may not feel super significant today, but 1% improvement. Okay, maybe like, okay, I need to get up an hour early and I need to read my Bible every day and I need to reflect and I need to pray in tongues and I need to exercise 2 hours a day and I need to start writing. It's like, oh, never mind. I'm watching Netflix and going back to bed. So maybe you don't need to get up a whole extra hour. I would say, yes, do it. Maybe you don't need to stay up an extra hour, but what if about 15 minutes? What if maybe on your lunch break, you can give 5 minutes of that to asking these questions rather than self-sabotaging by like, okay, I'm going to buy a gym membership and I'm work out 2 hours a day. What if you just walked around your house? What if you just did something small? We need wins. You need wins. You need to put goals in front of your life that are obtainable, achievable. Anyways, also for another area, another time, but you're worth the investment. And I say this all the time, but I want you to hear that. Be the biggest, most profound prophetic voice in your life. You need it. You're counting on you to choose for you. You're counting on you to vote for you. And I'm telling you, you are walking into significant grace in your life right now. And you are becoming the person that you're aching to be. I love you guys all so much. I'm so thankful and grateful for all of you. And we will see you next week, but our time is changing to 11:30. So we've been doing 11. It's going to be moving on Wednesdays to 11:30 for my part. The rest of our staff, they'll be doing different times as well. But for my part, it's 11:30. And yeah, we would love to hear from you. Tell us what you're going after. Tell us what you're growing in, and tell us the testimonies. We'd love to hear them. All right. Have a wonderful, wonderful week. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.